imagine you're a parent and you have a daughter who's of the age that she'd be dating, right? And looking for someone she wants to marry. And so she meets this guy, she's so excited, she wants to talk about it, it's just great, the best, awesome. And so you ask her, you're like, all right, so how'd it go? How's the first date? Tell me about this guy. And she says, well, it was great, but it was exhausting because we did a lot of running. Okay, why are you running? Well, he's kind of a thief. And he was caught stealing, and we were together, and so he grabs me by the hand, and we just start running. And it was fun, but it was exhausting. So we're running up staircases. Eventually, we get to the top of this building, and we feel like we've avoided the people who are trying to catch us. But then they make their way to where we are, and so now we gotta get away from them. And so he looks down off the top of the building, and he turns, and he was a gentleman, and he says, "Do you trust me?" If your daughter told you that, I don't know, but if you're like me, I'd be like, where does this guy live? Right? Like, get away from this guy. It sounds like bad news. The answer is no, I don't trust you. All I know is that you're a thief, right? And for some reason, we're running from these people. Now you want me to jump off a building, right? The whole, like, if your friend asks you to jump off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge? No. The answer is no, I don't trust you. At least not yet. You've still got some explaining to do, right? Well, what I basically just described, and you may know this, is the opening scene to Aladdin. Basically, it happens in the first couple minutes. Aladdin and Jasmine meet. It's great. They got that initial chemistry. You can tell they kind of like each other. But he steals, and then he gets caught. And so they run, and they're climbing up these stairs, jumping off the, roofs of Agrabah. And they get to this point where he's got to take the leap, and he turns around. And he's like, "Do you trust me?" And if you're like 99% of the people who have seen that movie, you're like, "Do it, Jasmine." It's gonna be fine. There's gonna be a soft landing. We're only 5 minutes into the movie, and it's called Aladdin, so he's gonna make it, right? And we're like rooting for him, and that's the vibe, You kind of hope she grabs his hand. That's a great example of a horrible choice that seems just fine because it's in a movie or a story that we love. And so over the next couple weeks, what we're gonna be looking at is not specific scenes, but really larger themes that come from movies that maybe leave us with lessons or principles that, if applied to real life, can be catastrophic to our lives, to our understanding of relationships, to relationships in general, to how we see ourselves, whether we're in a relationship currently or not. I was asked really nicely last night to not ruin The Notebook. And I'm not gonna ruin any movies for you. Most of the stories we're gonna be looking at are classic stories that have these really popular themes that keep showing up in all these new movies that are coming up. We'll give each one of them a name. So the first movie, it was a story first, then it turned into a Disney movie, and it's since been remade over and over and over again, is the movie Cinderella. Anyone familiar with Cinderella? Okay, yeah, most of us know about Cinderella, but in case you don't know, I'll summarize it for you. And just to make sure we're all together here, I'm gonna throw in a few trivia questions, all right? Some are easier than others. So Cinderella is this girl, and you turn on the movie right away. You can tell we just love her. She's beautiful. She sings. Animals love her. She cleans. She's hopeful. She's a hard worker. But she lives in really unfortunate living situation. She's got these evil stepsisters. They're just known as wicked in general, which isn't really a great way to categorize people, but apparently they're not nice. And she's got this evil, wicked stepmother, and they make her life miserable. Here's the first question. What were the names of Cinderella's wicked stepsisters? This is a hard one. It's a hard one. Someone in the first service got it, though. Anybody know? Anybody want to raise their hand? No? All right. It's a hard one. I didn't know this. Go ahead. Esmeralda. Close. What's that? No. It's Anastasia and Drizella. Yeah, so they're not nice. They're the wicked stepsisters. And so at this point in the movie, they just mistreat her. There's this royal ball. And at the ball, everyone wants to go. Everyone's invited. There's this prince. Everyone wants to fall in love with this prince. And so all the ladies are so excited about going to this ball. They're all about to get ready for the ball. But Cinderella's stepmother gives her stuff to do, so she can't attend the ball. She doesn't have time to get ready. And everyone knows if you don't have time to get ready, you can't go out, right? And so, next question, what task does Cinderella's stepmother give her that makes her unable to prepare for the ball? Anybody? Raise your hand nice and high. Anyone? Clean the house? Yes, that's part of it. Chores, she's got to do a lot of chores. Also, she's got to mend her sister's gowns, which is just rubbing it in, right? So she can't go to this ball, or so she thinks. Turns out she meets this fairy godmother who's just the best, and she's also an expert at getting people ready super fast and where they need to go in luxury. And so she comes and saves the day for Cinderella. She transforms some animals at the house so that Cinderella has a chance to go to the ball. Next question. What animals does the fairy godmother transform to become Cinderella's coachmen and horses? Mice. Yes, mice, but also a rat and lizards, which is, kind of gross if that's what's going on in your home. It's like Petco, but it ends up working out nicely for her. So she ends up going to the ball, and if you know the story, she gets the opportunity to get to know this prince, and he loves her. She's just amazing. They dance. But like a lot of young people who have a good time when they're out, she really pushes the envelope with the curfew, like tries to wait till the last minute to get home. And at the time of her curfew, if you know, the spell breaks and she turns back into just, regular Cinderella with her cleaning clothes, and the animals go back to lizards. But here's the question. What time does the spell break? Come on, everybody. Midnight. Now, that's midnight Central European time, which actually would be 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Fun fact, because this was in France. So the spell breaks at midnight, and everything starts turning into everything that it used to be, and Cinderella's running away, but she leaves something behind. And this thing that she leaves behind ends up being the thing that the prince uses to find her. Next question, what does Cinderella leave behind at the royal ball that ultimately leads the prince to find her? Everybody? The glass slipper. I don't understand why we just accept that so easily. That must have been so uncomfortable, like a shoe made out of glass. But yeah, so she leaves behind this glass slipper, and this glass slipper becomes the thing that the guy goes looking for her with, and he's trying to fit it on all these other girls, and it's not fitting until he meets Cinderella, and the shoe fits perfectly, and what happens? She lives happily ever after, and that's it. And so we're left with this lesson. We could call it simply the glass slipper. Does anyone have a glass slipper with them? Oh, perfect. Thanks, Nick. Can I have that table too? I love it when stuff like this just works out. Glass slipper. There you have it. Now, in that story, the lesson, really, the glass slipper, if you think about it, you have this girl who is alone. You like her, you're rooting for her right away. She's got a lot going for her, but something's not right. There's a problem. There's a feeling like something needs to be fixed. And the prince comes along, and it's the perfect fit. It's the perfect match. And now she once was something, but now she's her true self, who she was made to be. She's Cinderella in the big blue gown, and she forever will be. If you go to Disneyland, that's what she's wearing. She's not wearing her cleaning clothes. But this happens after she meets her prince. And the lesson here, really, we might not use this exact language, but the lesson here that we walk away with is like somewhere there's someone out there, and that person, like we look at them and we would say like, you complete me. You are what I've been waiting for. Even the use of a glass slipper in the original story is symbolic. It's this idea like there's one, but then there's also the other. Right? And it's mismatched. It's only half complete until the two finally come together. And it's the perfect fit. And we see this theme over and over and over again. And I'm not going to ruin any of these movies for you, but we see this in The Notebook, where there's a girl who's like, she's okay, we like her, she's got stuff going for her, but she's not who she is supposed to be until she finds the person who completes her. It's the same thing with Titanic, right? Have you ever seen Titanic? There's Jack and Rose. There's a girl, she's got a lot going for her. Her fiance's not very nice, but other than that, things are going really well. And then she meets Jack, right? And the two of them, like she's finally her true self. She's finally who she was made to be, because there's this feeling like when the right person comes along, they fix it. They fix it. So we might not say like, you complete me. We could zoom out a little bit and say like, really what this teaches us is that from a relationship, a romantic relationship, we eventually find fulfillment. Like we're satisfied, we're fulfilled. It's like, okay, you're the right to my left. Like, it's nice. And in the movies, it's happily ever after from that point on, because I've finally been made whole. Or if you want to make it in even more general terms, there's this idea that things aren't right. Like there is a problem until the relationship comes along, and the relationship is the solution to the problem. We see this over and over and over again, and we love these stories. We watch them, we read about them, we sing about them. Like the perfect fit, the one person I've been waiting for. Or in the church, we can spiritualize this idea as well. But there's someone God has made for me. We were made for each other. And we love it. We love it. It's this idea of the glass slipper. I'm incomplete until I find that person. You know, the issue with this, though, the problem that this creates, and you know this if you've been in a relationship, you know, you get together and maybe there's a time where it's like, yes, you're the perfect fit, you're the one, you are my Prince Charming, you're the woman I've been waiting for my whole life. But then, you know, you notice he makes that noise when he chews. And it's like not so perfect, right? Or she's always got questions, and like getting ready is a thing. And so like we got a plan for the getting ready. And it's like, oh, it's kind of annoying, and it doesn't feel quite perfect. Or maybe it's more serious than that. Maybe you genuinely were looking for someone to make you feel like you were worth everything. Like you were worth it all. And he's not doing that. She's not doing that. You feel dismissed. Maybe you were looking for someone who's going to give you like respect. You know, make you feel like you're there for the family. And not only do you not feel respect, but you feel like disrespect. And then you know, we're asking like, well, was I wrong? You know, like is the one the perfect fit? Are they out there somewhere? Did I miss it? Did I make the right choice? Maybe this isn't really the person that God had for me. Or maybe you were in a relationship, but for whatever reason, you're not anymore. Well, then what? You know, like was it that it was supposed to be, but it wasn't, or one of you made the wrong choice, or one of you went bad, and now what was supposed to be like the other half, what happened there? Because there was supposed to be this perfect fit, the solution to the problem, this sense of fulfillment. And pretty quickly, then, the relationships, the glass slipper, the lesson of the glass slipper starts to make relationships feel unfulfilling. Like she's not meeting those deep longings that I have in a way that I was hoping. I thought this was what it was all about. This is why I'm in that relationship. This is why I'm sharing my life in my home. Or maybe you haven't found the one. Or maybe your one is gone. And if we buy into what the glass slipper teaches us, if you're looking for the perfect match, your other half, well, without your other half, you're not whole. If that's what we believe, if that's the story that we've accepted. And so the glass slipper, unfortunately, what it does is it takes relationships, it makes them unfulfilling, and it makes singleness just this unending feeling of not being fulfilled. Like I don't have what I'm supposed to have. I feel not like a glass slipper, but a mismatched sock. Like there's just, where is it? Where is he? Where is she? And so what do? We just say like, okay, sorry, relationships are not what we thought they were going to be, and so lower your expectations. Not that great. It doesn't always work out. It's not a perfect fit. Well, some of you have probably been given that advice, like just sorry, it's just not as great as you thought it was going to be. But Jesus actually addresses this exact thing in a very practical, somewhat abstract, but very practical way with someone who has a history with broken relationships. And you can miss this because of where this detail comes in the story. But there's this one day where he's out and he meets a woman from another area. And this area was not friendly with the people in Jesus's area. It's the area we call Samaria. And there's a woman and she's all by herself. It's the middle of the day, it's around noon, and she's getting water, which means no one wanted to be with her because you don't go to get water at noon in the middle of the day. You go in the morning when it's not so hot. So if she's going, it means she feels unwanted. She's lonely. And the only detail we know, the only thing we know from this story about this woman, other than the town she's from, is that she has been with 5 different husbands. She's 0 for 5, and right now she's on number 6. But she's not married to him. And so Jesus addresses this with her. And he doesn't say, all right, relationships and you, it's just not gonna work out. He doesn't say you've got unrealistic expectations. He doesn't say we need to look at your conflict resolution style or address any one specific thing, which I think is brilliant. He just kind of steps back and looks at the situation as a whole. In front of this well, and you may have heard these words before if you've been here for a while because we've talked about this, but in front of this well where they're both looking for water, Jesus says to this woman, he says, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. I'll put an end to it. He says, indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. Now, eternal, when we hear eternal, we typically think like heaven. If you're like me, okay, he's talking about heaven. So whatever this means, I don't know, but he's saying, I guess it ends in heaven. The idea here in eternal is not just eternal in time, but eternal in quality. What he's saying to this woman is, there is within you a desire you're looking for. He doesn't say exactly what it is, but he says there's this longing. There's this sense of fulfillment you're looking for. We know where she's already tried to fill it. There's a problem she's trying to solve. And what he says is, you're not gonna find it where you're currently looking. You're not going to find the solution to the problem that you have where you're currently looking. But I have come to offer you a solution that actually works, that actually quenches that desire, that actually satisfies that need. Now, let me pause for a second here, okay? If you're like me and you've been in church before and you've heard things like this before, it's like, okay, yeah, great. That's what I expected. We're in church. You're telling me I don't really need people because Jesus is the answer and he's going to solve all my problems. And we walk out of here thinking, all right, there's a nice little spiritual platitude, but I don't know how that's going to affect Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. What Jesus is saying here is unbelievably practical. And he doesn't go into details with this woman, I think, to help us see how this applies to so many other areas. The idea is that within you, there are needs, not simply desires, but deep needs. You need to feel accepted. You need it. You need to have a place to belong. You need a sense of meaningful connection. When we don't have this, the wheels start to fall off. We need things like that. We need to know we have value. We need to feel those things. And so what they do is they kind of manifest in different ways. Like maybe the need to feel valued comes out as the need to feel attractive, which is the need to look beautiful. Or maybe the need for acceptance comes out as this need to be respected, to feel like you're achieving, to be worthy of like seen as accomplished. But these are deep, meaningful needs. And what Jesus is saying here, and what he said in so many other places, is I'm not telling you to not have those needs. You don't have a choice. But where you're trying to have those needs met, it's just not going to work. In the ancient Hebrew scriptures, in a book called Jeremiah, God says, along the same lines, he says, I've come to give you fountains of like water, living water. But you've chosen for yourself cracked cisterns. A cistern is a vessel that holds water. It's this idea of like a cracked pot, though it was much bigger than a pot. So I came to be a source, like Jesus said, a wellspring, right? Something that does not run out. And you're looking to have that met in something that cannot satisfy you. And so in essence, what he's saying is like relationships, the way this applies to relationships, the glass slipper, if you're looking for fulfillment, you will not find it because a relationship cannot give that to you. If you're looking to feel like you're accepted, like you meet the bar, what we say over and over again is like that is the message of the gospel. Like Jesus is saying, I have done this for you because you are enough for me. Not because you've done all the right things, but because you are worth it to me. You are worth pursuing in a way that it does not run out. And so you don't have to go into relationships with these needs expecting someone else to fill them because they can't. And you know this if you're in a relationship and the person you're with has this need to feel beautiful or this need to feel respected. You know you've got to work to make sure they feel, and you got to say it the right way, and you got to just tiptoe all around it, and you know you can never ultimately do it. And what Jesus is saying here, sure, we are broken people. We're always going to have issues. But he's saying, I am the place you can come back to over and over and over again. And stop and recognize, like, really, what's going on here? What is the deep ache within me? And is there something about what I believe that speaks to that? And maybe even disarms it? This is also what makes being single meaningful. Like in our culture, we have held up relationships as the end all be all. Like you're not complete until you find the one. Even that language, find, implies it's lost. Like it was supposed to happen and it's just not there. You know, Jesus and the Apostle Paul, arguably two of the most influential people who have ever lived, both said that being single is an asset, it's not a liability. It's a good thing to be single. Paul said if you're in a relationship, you got more things to worry about. And yet in our culture, we talk, well, when is he gonna find someone? When is she gonna finally? Because it's this idea that without the other slipper, you're one. You're incomplete. Without your other half, you're not whole. And that is totally, totally, totally false. Totally false. And on top of it, what you end up doing is looking for someone that's going to make you feel whole, and they will not. And you may need to get into the relationship to learn that. But hopefully you won't. There are needs that we have, and we can't change those things. But we can control where we go to them for needs. And you know this, it's super practical, right? Like if we've heard about this, we've read about this, you might have seen it on TV, you maybe even experienced it yourself. If you grow up as a child and there's a parent that does not meet some core need for you, do you know what happens when you get older? You end up searching for it somewhere else. My parents didn't make me feel like this, and so now I'm hoping they will, or he will, or she will. What Jesus is saying is, I actually will, in a way that doesn't run out. But it's not something you hear once, and all of a sudden everything's fixed. It's a tendency you need to develop, like to stop and ask yourself, why am I so upset about this happening? Like, why do I feel so empty because of this? Why do I feel so disrespected? Why do I feel so not valuable? And is there someplace I can go to have that resolved? Is there something that is true about me, that God says is true about me, that hasn't sunk in? And when we do that, it's not easy to do, to bring yourself to that place, especially when you're in pain emotionally. But when you do, you see it starts to just disarm everything. It starts to disarm that need. And you don't go into the relationship putting all the pressure on that other person to meet that need for you. I was talking to somebody about this exact thing a few weeks ago. And they said, yeah, when that happens, you are expecting somebody to do for you what only God can do. And that's not fair to them. And that relationship will always feel unfulfilling. The question, and again, I know this is deep, it's abstract, right? It might be hard to wrap your mind around. Maybe the question, very simply, is when you think about a relationship, do you see it as an addition to your life? A desired addition. Could be good, it's not bad to want to be in a relationship, don't get me wrong. Relationships are not a bad thing. But do you see it as an addition? Something else that could be great, is gonna take work, but it's something else. Or do you see relationships, romantic relationships, not as an addition, but as the solution? Do you believe that when you find that person, or when this person finally figures out the way you work, it will solve a problem within you? What Jesus would say is, well, they can't do that. And this is where, when we see relationships as solutions, once I find them, then I'll finally feel like I'm worth something. Once I find her, I'll finally feel okay, I'm enough. You won't. You won't, because that's not a problem that a person can fix. And so, a few different categories. If you're not a church person and you're here today and you're I thought this was going to be more practical. It was a lot of Jesus stuff today. I get that, right? But what if, for you, the only thing you consider is what if God is not this power-hungry, rule-giving dictator that's just out there making sure people don't have too much fun? What if Jesus would say to you, and what he says in this passage, what if he's saying, when you see me the way I really am, you will discover that I am actually the satisfaction to the deepest needs and longings within you. What if he is the greatest desire of your heart? and will provide you a sense of fulfillment. I would argue that relationships make pretty bad solutions, horrible solutions, because they don't solve the problem. But Jesus, what he's saying is that he is the solution. The issue with most of us, and I'm including myself in this party, is that our tendency is to see God as the addition and the relationship as the solution. Like, okay, God's a nice thing, and we go to the church, and when they do that song, yeah, that kind of gets me a little like special on the inside, but then I gotta handle my own business on my own. If God becomes the solution, and I know this is a big step, but if he becomes the solution to every problem, every struggle that we face, and not simply in addition to our lives, that's when those desires start to feel like they're being met. Like, I am enough, and I don't need her to make me feel that way. I don't need him to make me feel like I'm worth pursuing. But if you're not into church, maybe for you, the question is simply, what if Jesus really is the fulfillment to the greatest desires of your heart? If you're single and you feel like you are somehow a right without a left, it's not true. It's not true. And if you see relationships as the place where you will finally feel complete, you will forever be disappointed with relationships because they were not made to fulfill you. If you're in a relationship right now, there's two sides to this. Like the things that keep coming up, things you keep getting upset about. Is it possible that you're asking the person in your relationship to do something for you that only God can? Is it possible you're expecting them to fix something that really is something they don't have the ability to fix? Maybe they could pacify it when they say the right words at the right time, but they cannot fix it. If you're dating someone right now, and you see right off the bat, this person is expecting me to be something for them. There's a need there. They need me to be this. They need respect. They need to feel important. They need to feel beautiful. I would say, slow that relationship down, because that's not something that gets fixed once you get married. It becomes a single person problem and just becomes a married person problem. I'm going to ask the band to come back up here. Now here's the last picture I want to leave you with, and I've shared a little bit of this before, and I asked Allie if I could share this with you, so we're in the clear. A while ago, over a year ago, we went away. We went to this marriage thing in Tampa Bay. It was great. We had this counselor. We spent hours with this counselor. And we didn't go because the house was on fire. Things weren't falling apart. But we went for a checkup to make sure our communication was strong, that our relationship was healthy. And so we talked about some things that come up over and over again. And one thing that came to the surface was, like, I felt like one of the reasons I tend to get upset when we're out together is I don't know what she wants. And I'm telling this to the counselor. I'm like, I just can't figure it out. I don't know. She want to go here, she go there, and I feel like I got to guess, And then I find out later she didn't want to go to Dave & Buster's for her birthday. She would have liked to go to a nice restaurant, and but I don't know. And I'm trying to do my best, but I just I don't know. And when that happens, when I feel like I don't know, I start to get frustrated. And I start to, it's not just like regular frustration, it's this feeling like I'm gonna blow it. And I'm gonna feel like I've failed, like a failure. And so we're talking to this counselor, I need to know how to succeed, or I'm going to feel like I've failed, like a failure. And so in her nice, peaceful counselor type of way, she looks over at Allie and she's like, are you hearing that? Allie's like, yes. Sure. In her nice Allie type of way. She's like, can you try a little harder to articulate what it is you want? She's like, I can do that. She said, okay. So now Allie knows how to navigate it. But then she looked at me, and this I'll never forget. She was like, Allie may get really good at that. She may learn how to navigate this issue. But it's important for you to realize that feeling, not being enough, that fear of failing and then feeling like you're not enough, that is not a problem she can fix. And ultimately, you're asking her to do something that only God can do for you. She's like, I know you know that because that's the message that you teach. But you need to teach it to yourself because it's too much pressure on the relationship. And in that situation, there's an expectation that the relationship is the solution to the problem. That the relationship is the thing that can stop the thirst. But it's not. Only Jesus, really, in a very real way, can satisfy those deep desires within us.